Alright, hi everyone, my name's Jesse, and today I'll be talking to you about why Ren Stimpy is one of the highest quality cartoon shows ever made in history. You know, growing up as children, it was very common for us to be stuck in front of the TV just watching cartoons for hours. And now that we're in quarantine, it's pretty easy to do the same thing again. A lot of us have been going back for nostalgia's sake to watch all the old cartoons that we used to watch back when we were little kids. For example, I know a lot of people who are watching like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Johnny Bravo, Ed, Ed and Eddie, all those shows just for the sake of nostalgia, and also there's nothing else to do. But for me personally, I have been taking it upon myself to rewatch Ren and Stimpy. Um, and I've come to realize that Ren and Stimpy is truly a masterpiece and a work of genius. As a kid, I truly wasn't able to fully appreciate all the nuances that went into Ren and Stimpy, the quality that went into it, and how well it is able to be portrayed as a cartoon show for kids and adults both at the same time. There are many reasons why it's such a good show, but I think one of the biggest reasons that it's such a great show and why it's such of high caliber is that there's so much integrity that went into making Ren and Stimpy. So here is how it all started. Essentially, the creator, John Kricfalusi, was in college and he made these cartoon characters that he would draw just for fun. He then pitched the idea to Nickelodeon, and they liked the idea, and then they gave him the ability to write the show with his animation studio Spumco. It was first released in 1991, and it was one of the first three original cartoons on Nickelodeon, along with Doug and Rugrats. And everything was great, but the thing is that Ren and Stimpy, since it's a little bit grotesque, a little bit racy sometimes, that Nickelodeon had a lot of had a lot of issues. It didn't follow their standards for their television station, and so this led to actually a lot of heated communication between John Kay and Nickelodeon, all the way to the point where the only communication the two would have would only be through John Kay's lawyer. However, they came up with a resolution where, despite not meeting up to the standards of Nickelodeon, John Kay agreed that he would make a few episodes that were, lighthearted, heartwarming for the kids and all that, as long as he was given the creative freedom to do whatever he wanted with certain episodes. And so I think that leads to one of the first reasons why Ren and Stimpy is so high quality is because John Kay really wanted to make something that was of his own. Other shows are just made as cash grabs. This clearly wasn't. It was purely a work of creativity on John Kay's part that he wanted to express and put on the air. For example, the other two shows, Rugrats and Doug, they were made with the intention of selling toys as well, which was very common back in the 80s and early 90s to make TV shows to sell toys to kids. However, this wasn't the case with Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was solely a show just made to be put on the air. There wasn't any commercialization done with Ren and Stimpy, which just goes to show that they put all that effort and energy and attention into making Ren and Stimpy. Next is just the quality of animation. Firstly, all this animation comes from an inspiration from the golden age of animation, in which cartoons would be directed solely by one director, meaning that there would be one person in charge of the animation, the storyboards, the vocals, the music, whatever. It's all done by one person, and typically the way it's done now is that each one of those things would have a separate director in and of itself. What this allows to do is that it allows the one director to fully fulfill his vision, and so there's no miscommunication between anyone, and that's why all the episodes flow so well together. The animation, the vocals, the music, it all flows together in every instance and in every frame of Ren and Stimpy. Additionally, with the animation style that they do, they focus on the comedy in Ren and Stimpy is focused mainly on the visuals. In shows like The Simpsons, a lot of the humor comes from the situations that the characters are put in. However, with Ren and Stimpy, it's the opposite. It's done purely through the visuals that you see, whether them being twisted up or put into a ball and whatnot. It was all because of what your eyes saw, and because of this, the fact that the comedy was portrayed through visuals and the animation, it attracted your eyes to the screen at all times and you couldn't take it out. They focus on expressing strong and carnal exaggerations to the point where it's pretty much when you watch it, you can feel it in yourself. It just invokes these emotions just by visualizing all of this, that it just makes you feel like either really uncomfortable, but also makes you feel as though you're watching the funniest thing ever. For example, I'll show this clip here, and here's where I would show the clip of Ren pulling out nerve endings from his gums where his teeth would be with tweezers, and it's just it's cringeworthy, but it's funny. It's funny because it makes you cringe, and because they're able to portray it in such a brilliant way with the animation. Next is just the auditory aspect of Ren and Stimpy. There's so much music, such a wide variety of music portrayed in Ren and Stimpy. So much to the point that Ren and Stimpy, even though it was only on the air for like about 5 years, there were 3 albums released from the Ren and Stimpy original soundtrack. Oftentimes that they would play like actual music that was made by real life people. For example, they played lots of classical and Baroque music in Ren and Stimpy. And oftentimes you would hear this music often as a juxtaposition to the idiocy that's going on in that scene. You know, it's just so funny. The sound effects were always on point. They would grab the weirdest sounds and they'd tie it in with something that totally doesn't relate at all. And the fact that those two things that are unrelated are being put together makes it funny. Tricks your brain to thinking that, you know, what the heck's going on. For example, there's a scene where Stimpy is trying to think of something and his mind goes blank. And in the background, you can hear chickens just barking in the background. You know, those two things don't go together, but the fact that they're put together just makes you laugh. And lastly, Ren and Stimpy has left a huge legacy on animation in general, and inspired so many shows after its success and after its following. For example, Mike Judge, the creator of Beavis and Butthead, himself has said that Ren and Stimpy is what inspired him to go pitch Beavis and Butthead to MTV. Because of its success, he saw that it was so popular that and exact, you know, like the grotesque stuff, sort of like how Beavis and Butthead is visualized, that inspired him to go pitch it. And he didn't think it would be a success, but you know, it became a cult classic because of that. And also it pushed more towards the adult animation industry. If it wasn't for Ren and Stimpy doing what they did, there wouldn't be the adult animation that we have now, such as Family Guy and American Dad and all those things, Rick and Morty. The success of Ren and Stimpy showed that these kind of shows are popular, and that's why networks started picking up shows like that. Additionally, the way SpongeBob was storyboarded was a direct influence from Ren and Stimpy. Many of the animators that worked on Ren and Stimpy ended up working on SpongeBob, and you can sort of see that as those close, grotesque close-ups that were super detailed that you saw in Ren and Stimpy was also present in SpongeBob. For example, the episode when Squidward is eating a whole bunch of Krabby Patties and it zooms in on his legs that it just becomes so fat because he's eating so many Krabby Patties. That's an example that you would see in Ren and Stimpy. So, in conclusion, Ren and Stimpy is such a great show. It conveys grotesque humor that can be appreciated by both children and adults. It's not a very sophisticated show to enjoy. However, there's so much sophistication and nuance that went into the making of the show that just makes it such a high-quality, high-caliber TV show that you just can't help but appreciate. And that's why it's truly a work of art. Thank you.